Loudburst. Just what you want to hear.
We had begun all this by asking our friends to trust us, to share stories that maybe they had kept to themselves. We had wanted to see if we could do more than just listen and shiver. But the unexpected net of interlocking tales had cast itself wider than expected, catching people from different online groups, people from the past, forgotten storytellers, and shadowy, maybe mythical friends of friends of friends.
It was as if the first unsettling tale had possessed a dark gravity that dragged in others, and now, faster than we liked, it had pulled in one or more unknown people who seemed to know all about our obsessions and wanted us to know that they knew.
They had sent us a mysterious package stuffed with arcane information related to the project.
Did they want to help, or to tell us we were wasting our time?
Were they trying to assist us, or to intimidate us, to scare us off? I'm Joel Morris.
And I'm Will Maclean. And this is Broken Veil.
Episode 6. What you want to see.
The paperwork was disturbingly specific to our investigations, but overwhelming and in no particular order, as if it had been looted from a ransacked office.
We split the package in half and went to our respective homes to read and annotate, tagging each piece of evidence to one of our strange stories. The weird buildings,
The airfield,
the railway,
the area around the church, with a separate folder for items that seemed to point to somewhere new, or that we simply couldn't understand.
The next day, we met at a cafe to compare notes. Will's portion of the documents contained everything from railway ephemera and yellowing local newspaper clippings to architect's drawings of signal boxes and sheafs of ancient faxes about church repairs.
There's the odd piece about trespassing and other things and some timetabling, but it's mostly, I couldn't find... Actually, no, that's not true. There is one thing in there that was relevant to what we're doing, which was there were old plans for the railway when it was built, which had been photocopied and put in there. And on the plans, one of the stations, and you'll like this, is explicitly identified as Station 13. I mean, that's great, but the main thing about the package is it was very disturbing. There's a mania to it, that all of that information and sending it to us as if we're, supposed to take the bones out of it. I don't like it.
My half of the package contained a document that belonged to a different era entirely. It had stood out the moment we opened the parcel, and it was where I'd given most of my focus, simply because it seemed to point in a new and unexpected direction. It was entitled Strange News of the Scratching Mass, the two words that our friend Sarah had heard and never wanted to speak out loud. Two words that had zero internet footprint, that seemed to have never been uttered before, but here they were on the cover of a chapbook dated to the 1640s on its library label. A sensationalist witch-hunting report with all the customary gruesome satanic woodcuts and thick, black, Malleus Maleficarum type. Now, obviously, that's the first thing I looked at.
Yeah.
And looked at it, it's brilliant. I'll tell you what's in there in a minute, because
Okay.
that's a highlight. But don't look at the pamphlet. I know.
Okay.
Look at that. Look, it's been taken out of a library. It's been photocopied from a library. There's a permission stamp on there. Look at the logo on the library. It's from a private collection. Look. It's theirs. Stamped on the photocopy were 6 horizontal lines, one of them broken. A library tag, granting permission for reproduction from a private archive. And a company name underneath. Noctuax. We looked them up. Naturally, they didn't exist. But then, as far as we knew, neither did this pamphlet.
It's the same thing occurring to you as occurred to me. Why haven't we seen this before?
Yeah.
People in the Reader's Digest book of folk
I've never
horror.
seen it, and the reason is that library stamp. Noctuax, whoever they are, have got in a private library.
Yeah.
They've kept it out of the public domain. Why?
This was a corner of weird history that both of us knew fairly well. The iconography of the English witch crazes gets reprinted again and again. All those scroll-captioned familiars, Vinegar Tom, Sathan, Pyewacket, are all instantly recognisable from books, magazines, record covers and t-shirts.
This pamphlet was as good as any, but had been kept from entering the culture for some reason. Maybe the answer was in the story contained within the pamphlet itself, which was, it has to be said, spectacularly strange. It's 1640s, it's the height of the witch panic, it's the height of the Civil War, because those go hand in hand. Matthew Hopkins, the actual Witchfinder General, is paid for to come in and is looking into the cases of 13 women who've been pulled out of rural communities and accused of satanic practices. There's massive women who need to be processed. They can't be done locally, they can't be done in their churches and in their village halls. They are pulled to the county town where the machinery is in place to do the processing, which is the assizes. And the place where this impromptu witch trial was to be held was, with the same strange symmetry we'd observed before, very familiar to me. That's the county town where I grew up, where I was at school. I walked up and down this high street all the time. I know the exact site where this would have happened, where they would have been imprisoned. This is under the ground of where I grew up. As a teenager, I was into all this sort of stuff and didn't know it had happened right on my doorstep. The site of the gallows itself was almost within view of my teenage bedroom. Over 100 supposed witches ended up there. To put that into context, Salem killed 30. And it turns out a witch hunt is a bureaucratic process. There are costs, invoices, records. Dealing with the containment of evil in a town is like dealing with drainage or road tolls. There's paperwork. Which means the names of the women who were hanged are generally well known. But the roll call of names on this pamphlet was entirely new to me. The pamphlet detailed the crime for which the women had been dragged out of their villages and imprisoned awaiting trial. Intent to perform a scratching mass. Scratching Mass, according to the pamphlet, is a blasphemous parody of the Eucharist. It's a ritual done on the Sabbath when everyone else is in church. You do your scratching Mass and you attempt to contact dark forces to do your bidding. It's a magical spell or a procedure to deliver you from peril. The actual wording in the pamphlet was thus: "Whomsoever performeth the scratching Mass will be delivered from dire need to a place of safety." So the assumption is these women knew Hopkins was coming. They did a scratching Mass to deliver them to a place of safety away from peril. Didn't work and they were pulled in.
Yes.
They were kept in cages, which is what happened to witches. They're unhuman, they've been othered. You put them in a cage as part of the process to make them confess, open to the elements. They're living on scraps of food out in the market square, having stuff thrown at them. One of the women, Agnes Clamp, who'd been accused of witchcraft, they came down one morning and she was missing from her cage. No evidence of how she'd broken out. The cage was still locked and she'd vanished. The supposition was that she had performed on her own a scratching Mass to deliver her from peril, and that the Dark Lord or Dark Forces had plucked her from the cage and taken her to safety. She never made it to the gallows. 12 women of the 13 were hanged. The 13th woman, Agnes Clamp, did not hang. Word spread like wildfire. It was a paradox so beloved of the witch hunts that by escaping her fate, Agnes Clamp had proven her own guilt. But according to the sensational woodblock pamphlet, that wasn't the end of her story. She was then seen 3 days later, peering in on the Sabbath, on the Sunday, through the window of her local church in the parish she'd been dragged from. Guess which church?
Oh.
And she was, in inverted commas, then never seen again. The package also contained a photocopy of a second pamphlet, dated a decade later. The same stamp, 6 lines, and the name Noctuax. And on the folded cover, more sensationalised images of witches dancing round a fire, a dog-faced demon leering from the flames. And in the middle of the woodblock text, a blue highlighter pen stripped across a name, Agnes Clamp. This account was the testimony of a local chapman, a dealer in household goods and books. He was visiting a relative on the Essex coast when he saw a woman in the main street at St Osyth, whose face seemed hauntingly familiar.
Excited that this woman who'd vanished was suddenly there again, ran up to her and said, "Are you Agnes Clamp?" And she denied it, and she only answered to the name of Ursula Godwit. She had been delivered from danger. She was a new person. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
I'm sorry, is this not enough? I thought this was brilliant. This is obviously what we have to do next. This is the next bit of the story, surely.
I'm aware that here I sound both excited and irritated in equal measure, but Will seemed distracted. A fascinating story of 17th century witchcraft would normally be catnip for him, but his mind was elsewhere.
It's too perfect.
It's all of this. It's just, honestly, I'm still in shock from yesterday.
Yesterday's phone call and the package implied something unnerving. That we were being watched and followed, and it rattled me that we were being steered into investigating something that wasn't our own discovery. Something that was both exactly where we wanted to go, but was somewhere we were going against our will.
The fact that everything does consistently keep lining up is now starting to freak me out.
One, because basically it means I can take you somewhere I know it's somewhere
we
familiar.
got a phone call from someone we didn't know who was watching us, telling us that to go and get a package, which then leads us on to something else. And I know this is like, I know,
but this is how we've done this.
Conceptually,
we've been using friends to get stories.
I know.
We've been using our friends to do this. It's just because it's someone we don't know.
It's fine when it's all in theory, but I find that us doing it, like, once your head's on the block, I just don't know where this ends.
They can't hurt us. This is just stories.
It feels unpleasant. I am worried.
So you having trouble getting the jolly adventure thing up over the top of this? It's a scary story, but it's from hundreds of years ago.
Yeah,
it is, but that's safe, isn't it?
We took a break. I bought us a fresh pot of tea, and Will felt settled enough to carry on making connections. Connections that might help us get to the next stage of the investigation, regardless of who was helping us this time.
Right, so say Agnes Clamp is a real person.
Yeah.
We know that. She does this ritual, this unholy thing, which makes us switch tracks, makes us switch lives into another reality. All right, so because that would appear to be the cornerstone of everything we're looking at. Maybe this Agnes Clamp story is the beginning of it. Maybe she is the one who, it just seems mad to even be saying this, but like maybe that's why we've been directed towards this. She causes this weird rift.
She busts a hole open.
Yeah. I mean,
it's never healed up.
It just sounds mad because it lines up so perfectly. So she does this scratching mass. Sarah's right saying it. It's just horrible. She's delivered from peril, and then that's a fault line, and it's a fault line through history, and it ends up manifesting itself in all of these things that we've looked at, every single one where two realities don't line up because it's like a broken prism. Light now will only go through it a certain way, so every time you're looking at it, you end up with that jarring thing where the realities don't line up.
Maybe something had happened in the shadowy world of superstition in one of the country's darkest and bloodiest moments that had created a fracture with its echoes in 20th century paranoia and 21st century conspiracy.
Maybe the weirdness has been there all along. Maybe this schism that's there is there all the time. It's been there forever, and that's what the building was, as an attempt to exploit. I don't know.
That's why the package said, this is the next bit.
This is the next
bit.
So
I told you, we've got to go and investigate. We've got to go and do this bit
Does
next.
it not freak you out that all of this is like where you grew up?
I realise now that my excitement at the story leading back to the local assizes, to the gallows, to Matthew Hopkins and the witch panics, had trumped any anxiety. This was a strange, domestic psychogeography laid over my dull, commuter belt childhood, whose madness I found more reassuring than all that relentless mundanity. It was weird in a way I liked.
We've got the car, we jump in the car, we go back to my hometown, and so I say we just follow that.
Just feels
and
a little
but
like
it might be the way to
manipulated.
bring this to a close or something. It's really neat.
Any of this is.
No, but
yeah, it's neat, but it's sort of.
Someone's done all the research for us. It saves us a load of time.
No. It's look, withheld number. They've texted again.
So the person who sent us the.
I don't know. It just says, "Did you get a package?"
A package,
Yeah,
not the package.
Not the package. A package.
Did you get a package? Well, say yes. Reply yes. Don't.
I will.
No
reply.
more than that. Just do yes.
I'm going to say, who is this?
Stop.
Is this?
What does it say?
Wait.
Wait.
Just one word.
This final message contained 3 things. First, there was a screenshot of Google Maps with a location marked in the middle of a field. Second, there was a photograph of the nearest landmark to that location. We were unsurprised to see the familiar silhouette of the church that we visited twice already. And lastly, there was a time later that evening and that day's date, along with the words, "Looking forward to meeting you." Someone wanted to see us in person. There then followed 2.5 anxious hours in a cafe, deciding whether to honour this bizarre request. In that time, we went back and forth, from ridicule to fear to disbelief and then denial. But ultimately there was no real doubt between us as to our course of action. As the winter afternoon began to fade, we climbed into the car and headed north.
We are on our way, and it's I don't know what the word. I'm anxious because because this is somebody's been following us, and they've been keeping tabs on us, and now we're going to meet that person.
The best option is it's just a weirdo.
That's our best option. That's reassuring to know. He's just going to skin us alive.
We got a lead that said to go somewhere, and then
we don't know. I mean, we don't know what we're walking into. It's
no, that's...
Even that sounds melodramatic. It's like we don't know what we're walking into, but we really don't. So I am very much on edge. By the way, I have texted my wife and sent her what 3 words of where we are, and I would strongly recommend to do the same.
And soon we were back on the corridor of haunted land, trapped between the narrow hedgerows, as the sun began to set and the cold, empty sky evaporated the last of the ground's warmth. We parked in a lay-by and walked, anxiously, hands in pockets, barely speaking, to the rendezvous point which the phone message had shown us, by a roundabout with 3 blind exits. Scaffold Hill.
It is so fucking cold.
It's freezing. Nice sunset though, it's good.
Yeah, but that's only because the sky's so clear.
Yeah.
This is not a good place to be when it gets dark.
No, I was going to say the more
the murdering place.
The more the sun goes down, the colder it's going to get. Let's not forget as well that we are early. He's not late, so I mean.
Do you think? I mean, are we waiting for a car or a?
I'm just saying, are we waiting for anyone? Do you think this is a? Do you think he's yanking our chain? I can't shake the feeling that we're in someone's like sniper sight or something. It's complete rubbish. But...
And so we waited and waited. The sun sank to a string of glittering beads on the horizon and was gone. The sky darkened. Night fell. The temperature plummeted. We began to think we'd been had. And then...
Look. No, over there. And there he was. A figure on foot. Grey silhouette across the open fields, slowly sharpening into focus. A man moving with confidence, as if he were only walking across the land to survey it, as if he owned it.
As he drew nearer, we could see that he was in a warm-looking winter parka, the sort of huge practical outdoor coat a man might buy for winter sports or location filming, a night shoot jacket paired with smart suit trousers and tall, expensive Wellington boots.
A rangy, white, angular-faced man in his late 40s, and just above the open neck of his jacket We could see a neat bow tie and a crisp white shirt. Evening wear, as if he was stopping off to talk to us on the way to the opera or his club, and travelling the whole way without the slightest concern, on foot, a spot of exercise. We greeted him cautiously, and he greeted us both by name, the first of many unnerving details in this encounter. Then we thought it best to agree on terms.
All right. I suppose the first question is, we are recording this. Are you okay with that?
Yes, yeah. I wouldn't be here otherwise, although my sole condition here is that you disguise my voice.
We had expected to have to drive somewhere, that he would pick us up in a black-windowed Range Rover and take us to a place where we couldn't be overheard.
But he explained the best way to achieve privacy was to remain outdoors and keep moving.
After checking we had suitable footwear, like a practical parent on a school trip,
He led us down through the fields to the bank of an old stream, leading east through reeds, bending slowly towards a distant spire.
Okay. Why are you helping us?
Well, that's a very complicated question. Was the package helpful?
Did you send us that package?
Did you like it? Was it everything you wanted?
Had a lot of answers in it.
Didn't it just? Like you would have followed it and spread the information inside it and got completely lost. I imagine that's why they sent it to you.
So you didn't send it?
It wasn't me. Otherwise I wouldn't be here.
So why did they send it to us?
To give you a push in the wrong direction.
So nothing in that package was true?
Please tell me you didn't think it was. Otherwise this is a wasted journey.
He explained that the package had come from his department, but not from him, and he wanted us to understand what we were dealing with.
What was in that package has been algorithmically delivered to engage you. You found what you want, and so you've got to stop there and tell everyone that you've finished. But that's just confirmation bias. You think if you can get all the stories to line up, they'll give you some sort of an answer. And that's what you want, isn't it? Coherence.
Yeah, but the stuff in that package, it all seemed to line up.
Yes, but anything can be made to line up. It's like ley lines. Rule any line across a map and it'll join two or more things you're interested in. And then your brain, unable to bear random information, will connect the dots.
So it becomes harder to think straight?
No, it becomes far too easy to think straight. So you're looking at everything you can see, but you cannot see everything.
The ground rose up slightly from the riverbed, and we found ourselves by the narrow road that led round the corner to the gate of the old church. The church where we'd found banal, quiet voices hidden in the silence.
The church with the strange annex that couldn't be there, and where Agnes Clamp had been glimpsed peering angrily through the window at the neighbours who had tried to send her to the gallows.
The place was locked, but neither of us were too surprised when he produced a key.
Right, so what was the building from the stories?
Which building?
Or any of the buildings. The building that Tony and Sarah went to, the weird 60s flat roof building. What was the building?
You already know.
No.
Trust me, you do. It was Station 14.
Oh, no, but Station 14 doesn't exist. The railway nerds told us.
Maybe Station 14 doesn't exist for us, but it does somewhere else. The place your friend skips in, on the other side.
The other side?
We're sitting in a very old church. This one is intact, without post-war repairs, because it never needed them.
No, so it's in the middle of nowhere.
But why waste the ordnance? But what if there was another version of this exact space near the church where there was something of strategic importance here? Something that made a foreign power want to bomb this bit of countryside? What if this church were different then? What if it was like Coventry, poking up from the smoking ruins? A survival, rebuilt heavily now, a patchwork of eras, each with a different resonance.
How does this link up with the scratching mass? Because that's way old. That's not a post-war thing.
It's just a Black Sabbath. It's just a name. People name experiments after the craziest things. Scientists do have a sense of humour. Maybe the scientists knew some obscure occult history. Scratching mass. It's a good name. Easily as good as Cobra Mist.
Yeah.
You know Cobra Mist.
Cobra Mist. It's Hawford Nest, this bit of land that was there.
Cobra Mist was a secret wartime project conducted on the spit of land at Orford Ness in Suffolk. Experiments to see over the horizon. Scrying, a cornerstone of witchcraft, to detect the enemy before they could harm you.
So does that mean they're related, like Scratching Mass and Cobra Mist?
Secret military project with an occult-sounding name.
Hang on. Are you just telling us what we want to hear?
Of course I am. That's why I'm here.
So is the Scratching Mass part significant at all?
If you want it to be. Perhaps. Or maybe it's just a distraction.
Whoever this person was, they had an evident glee in misleading us and in our subsequent conclusions, which was frustrating and intriguing all at the same time. Station 14, meanwhile, seemed to be as many things as we needed it to be.
A sinister medical establishment.
A corporate headquarters.
A listening station on an airfield.
A stop on a ghost line.
A research station doing sinister experiments. Maybe it was all of them, superimposed one on the other, a glitching mass of competing existences.
Help us out, okay? Station 14 was the weird building, according to you. The unremarkable building that vanished. Okay, that's... You're prepared to admit...
Let me explain Station 14. At the point where the old railway line reaches into the countryside, if you added another station, it would be here, near the church and the roundabout at Scaffold Hill. Now there's nothing there. It's sort of near the village, but not close enough to anything, so there's no point building anything there. It's not anywhere. But it is the perfect empty flat space for something like an airfield.
That was the airfield we'd visited. It was merely rubble now, the land still military owned, but the site abandoned.
Nothing of it remained, but just maybe, it seemed, there was still something there.
Yes, it was an American airbase in the war. They gave it back in 1959 to return the land to agricultural use. There wasn't a need for it. The war was long over, Suez had happened, but we weren't actively at war. Do you know what they built that airbase out of?
No.
Rubble from the Blitz.
Then he zipped up his coat and headed for the door, smiling benignly for us to follow. And of course, we followed, hoping for more answers.
But consider this. What if the base had never been flattened? What if the military facility was still there? What if a single political decision in the 1950s meant that there wasn't a downing of weapons? What if the tension went up and the stroke of a pen on the paperwork was changed? What if the airfield remained the property of the American military, maybe gifted to them by the British government in an act of Cold War détente, like Greenham Common? Right. For now, in this world, where there were new enemies and new purposes for the site, there would need to be transport out to the place. The line that once served the nuclear bunker would also serve other strategic positions, like the airfield, which was now a research facility with colossal levels of Cold War military funding. Experiments. Incredible experiments. That would require your railway station. Lots of workers, lots of scientists.
Station 14?
Yep, from the mainline terminus, out as far as the old airfield. It's tricky, isn't it, getting it all to line up? I'm sure you'll get there. What do you think you've been looking at all this time? All these stories, what are they?
It's places where reality's broken down, people experience stuff they couldn't possibly have done.
What did Freud say about dreams? We shall ignore the manifest content and focus on the latent.
What do you mean?
You're looking at a footprint and calling it a boot.
That's just cryptic. What are we looking at?
Industrial waste.
He had warned us not to follow or trust the contents of the package, but this man was almost a real-life version of it. His every statement just opened up a potential new avenue of inquiry, uncapping a bottomless well of irresistible but baffling information.
It's another riddle.
There's a line carrying military personnel, civil servants, support staff, all travelling up to this facility in the flat countryside. Not in our world, but in another. Hate using that dreadful word timeline, but you won't be familiar with the correct terminology.
What should we call it?
A theatre of outcome. Another theatre of outcome then, where the bunker wasn't the only key target along this line. In this world, maybe, the nuclear defence bunker was there to serve the people working at the base, not central government. Maybe they were equally important. More so. But we both have realities occupying the same physical space.
Is that where our ghosts come from? The ones that people saw? They even interact?
I just don't like the term ghosts. Let's say in this place, people see glimpses of something that isn't there, and so... Yes, it's a ghost story, if you like.
You can hear that we wanted the story we wanted. But was he just manipulating our curiosity? So we demanded only what he was prepared to give us?
It's all the same sort of story and it all happening in this place, so why is that?
No, this is your puzzle. You started this. Think of some classic explanations, dimensional transference, that sort of thing.
Hang on.
No, come on.
This is the Philadelphia experiment. We know that's bullshit.
Isn't it? Yeah. But if someone could do that, would they tell you? Or not tell you, but make sure you knew that they were capable of it?
Is that the answer? That they were doing a Philadelphia experiment at Station 14?
Well, who knows? We're on the wrong side of the fence to know for sure. All we've got is these faint echoes of what happened, what is still happening, where there was a reason to keep the base open at Station 14, to pivot into hugely expensive cutting-edge research, to start doing who knows what.
This was the real Station 14, and that implied something astonishing.
That we were looking at the whole affair face on, after all.
Hang on, what if that was the experiment?
What? So
basically, the reality leaking wasn't an accident. It's actually what it was meant to do. The idea was to leak from one reality to another.
There, now you're thinking. Of course, in our world, this is all just theory. It's Hugh Everett hypotheses. It's science fiction. We can't just skip between realities as if we were simply switching lanes on a motorway. But let's say this was the experiment, to make it possible to move voluntarily between outcomes. And what if someone in our reality knew what was being done in that other reality? And what if they wanted to have access to the research that was being done there? How would they travel across to get that information?
No, it's impossible. You couldn't do it.
So our world doesn't have Station 14, so we don't have a 70-year history of inter-reality research. What if, on the other side, in the other place, this is all they've been doing, finding out how to turn the reality glitches which we perceive as leaks into a bridge, a passage between continuous space, across the channels of history. What if we could ask them how it's done, and then leave here and join them in their world, or any other world? You have to ask yourself, who would want to leave here, our world, and go there?
I don't know, honestly. Help us.
Yeah, that would be a terrible payoff for you two, wouldn't it? Try again. This time think of something you got right. Now, what was the logo again? 6 lines.
It was Hexagram 14, it was just TIU.
Affluence, they got that right. It's a corporate logo. Of course, they like the 14 thing. That's why they loved the letter N, Noctuax, and so on. But it means success. And what sort of person would call their company Wealth Incorporated? That's a specific sort of psychopath. So you need to try and see that, try and look at this story from that angle. Once governments collapse, who's left? Who buys all this stuff? Who wants to leave the planet and go to Mars or anywhere else?
It's billionaires. It's billionaires.
Fucking billionaires, isn't it?
You don't want to go to Mars because basically it's horrible there. You want to go somewhere that's sort of like this. You don't want to end up doing hard labour. You land there, you're a settler. You're just You're not like a rich person. You're doing navvy work.
So they want to go somewhere that's already built.
So wouldn't it be better to go to an Earth where the facilities are already in place, with the hierarchies you know? And there's decent wine and good food, and somewhere a bit like where you already are.
This place was a thin place. Whoever had weakened the barriers, here it was possible to see the break in the veil.
And maybe walk through.
Maybe somewhere that a different past means different decisions were made, a place with a brighter future, one that's not going to hit 1.5 or even 4 degrees. Skipping the scene, leaving the rest of us behind. Going where wildly advanced technology has solved the problems we have here. impelled by whatever catastrophe drove them to keep this research going. And of course, governments no longer exist, here or anywhere else. Corporations own all this stuff. On Mars, your money's worthless. On another Earth, it's still money. You could take it with you. The dream of every billionaire. Who'd want to go to Mars and die there when you can go to Station 14 and live as a god?
This was apocalyptic thinking. There were plenty of conspiracy theories of how billionaire preppers were planning to abandon us to the planet they had plundered. Less a rapturous religious sect ascending to heaven, more like rowdy teenagers quitting a house party. We weighed up the fantastical story he'd told us.
In his version of things, Station 14 was the ultimate escape hatch, and what was on the other side was a promised paradise for a lucky few who owned the key.
We had heard credible rumours of off-world colonies or private climate-controlled bunkers, but this was something new, a sort of dimensional offshoring. But even as he told us this story, we began to have doubts.
Is that what you came all this way to tell us? That's it? That this is billionaires?
Oh, is that the answer?
Well, I mean, it all lines up rather nicely, doesn't it?
Are you just telling us what we want to hear?
Haven't you been paying attention? What was the answer you want? To blame the super rich. It fits your prejudices. It's got your baddies in it.
Who was this man? Who 1 second regarded us with bemused curiosity, like a benevolent uncle watching children play, the next seemed to be bored or almost offended by us and what we were doing.
Are you meant to be telling us any of this?
Do you think I am?
Well,
We're going to put it on a podcast.
is that okay?
Of course, that's why I'm here, to utilise what you can do for me.
Isn't that a huge risk to you, though?
God, no one's going to believe you. They'll think you're mad or you made it up. Or that I'm mad. I mean, listen to me, I sound like a madman, don't I? And so will you, for listening to me and repeating it.
Are you saying it's not true?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's as convenient a conspiracy as any other one. It's just that, you know, this one has one element in its favour.
What's that?
It's true. But then I have to say that, don't I? That's my job. Now, if you'll excuse me, gentlemen, time's up. My lift is waiting. Good night.
And then he left. But before he did, he asked one thing of us. He asked us to time 10 minutes on our phones and to stay where we were until those 10 minutes had elapsed, before making our way back to the car. Later on, we questioned why we did this, but in that moment, at the end of that strange encounter, there was no question of us disobeying. We gave him his 10 minutes and stayed put.
Of course, the minute he'd left us, we began to reassure ourselves that the guy was a crank, a nut, an eccentric who wanted to join in what we were doing, dangle a fairy story he'd invented in front of us. Chances were he lived nearby and had donned his debonair evening suit to give him the necessary gravitas to pull his story off.
Standing out there, in the cold, in the dark, we found ourselves doing what humans have always done. And we told stories.
How long's that?
It's been 2 minutes.
I want to go.
I want to go as well.
I mean, whatever that was, that felt like... I mean, if that was what it... Is that what he was making it sound like? If it was disinformation...
Yeah.
Then that means that we've stumbled upon something and it's worth them stopping us. But on the other hand, he might just be some nutter, some guy who wants to put his fanfic in someone else's podcast.
It's so cold I can't think straight.
I was just thinking it's like, I mean, because there's the disinformation, the whole point with things like the Mirage Men or the sort of Northern Ireland police selling ghost stories to keep people indoors.
Yeah.
It's the idea is that you're sowing confusion. You're
also doing something that's so much effort that not a sane person wouldn't do it, and that's the lie that you're telling. You know what I keep thinking about? Robert Anton Wilson.
Illuminatus.
He wrote that book, and then for some reason after that he had no money, he was skint, and then One day out of the blue, this guy just turns up and goes, I loved your book, it was fantastic. I'm one of the real Illuminati. I'm really one of the people who run the world. And Wilson was like, yeah, sure. And then the guy took Wilson and his family out to dinner. I think they lived in New York at that point. And it was like, they took him to the best restaurant they could find. And the guy had regaled them all evening with stories about running the world. And then paid for everything. He spent like $1,000 on this meal. And Wilson said to the end, I don't know whether this guy was for real or not, but the fact that he spent so much money, if it was a practical joke, it was an incredible one. And I feel that this feels like that. This feels like if he was bullshitting, then there was a lot of effort behind this.
Had anything we'd been told been real? Or had every scrap of truth been compromised, intentionally contaminated by someone whose job it was to obscure, deflect, and deceive?
That's the key to magic, is that if you're going to do a trick, the idea is that the people you're doing the trick on can't believe the effort you've gone to, so it's easier to believe it.
Yeah, I guess.
It's how you crash someone's belief.
It's easier to believe someone's sawn a woman in half than
they've worked out how to pretend to saw a woman in half.
Yeah.
It's just a magic trick.
I'm so cold.
Oh, that must be, what's that, 6 minutes?
7, I think. Should we just go?
Let's just go.
Let's go.
But then, a sound. From the nearby empty acres of freezing farmland, an incredible noise. A rush of air and the drone of a powerful engine. The unmistakable sound of a helicopter taking off.
We froze, unable to process what was happening. And the lights of the helicopter, far above, stayed motionless, as if watching us.
And it's just hanging there. It's not on its way somewhere, it's just hanging over.
There's nothing here, it's just fields. There's nothing. I don't know about you, but... I'm trying to say it's a coincidence, but fucking hell.
What's it looking at?
What? Yeah.
It's just us.
Okay.
Let's keep moving.
Let's keep moving.
If what our man had told us was true, his entire story was sensational and terrifying.
But his constant undercutting of this story, plus his casual indifference as to what we did with it, implied it didn't matter too much to him either way. As long as a story was told, it seemed, that's what mattered to him. Finding more uncertainty felt like an unsatisfactory ending to our story.
We were worried that our sponsors would think the same, but to our surprise, they were more than happy with what they heard. True or not, it formed part of something which cloaked the reality of what was really going on.
Part of a labyrinth of conflicting information with no way out. A rabbit hole intentionally designed to go on forever.
Ultimately, like all stories, it's up to the listener to decide what to make of it.
Because some stories want to be told.
And some don't.
Swallow me, and if it were my heart, would
Broken Veil was created by Will Maclean and Joel Morris. Music by Philip Morris. Production and additional music cues by Joel Morris. Theme music by Josie N. Clark. Tony was played by Tony Way. Sarah was played by Sara Barron. Al was played by Al Campbell. Gaby was played by Gabrielle Glaister. Paul was played by Paul Putner. Tim was played by Tim Dunn. Dr. Beeching was played by Rufus Gerard Wright, with additional voices by Mel Gutteridge and Carrie Quinlan.
If you want to say it loud. When you want to get your message across, you need Loudburst. Whether you're an experienced creator or you're new to digital communications, talk to us. We know what you're looking for, even if you don't. With everything from production tools and editing assistance to marketing know-how and integration, Loudburst is with you every step of the way. Loudburst, just what you want to hear. Part of the Noctuax Group.